Good morning, everybody. Happy Victory Sunday, Buckeye Nation. This is a good one. This is Jeff Needs Sports. I'm Jeff, obviously. This is the Buckeye Remix, back the way nature intended it on Sunday morning after a solid win by the Ohio State Buckeyes. So, here we go. We know we do the show. I want to get you in, get you out of here. First of all, everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I appreciate the feedback through the week. Things take off a little more each time I do this show, and it's because of the great fans out there. So, and let's face it, it's a lot easier when the Buckeyes look like they did this Saturday compared to, like, say, a few weeks ago. But you know what? That's how things work in college football. That's why we love it. A lot of crazy stuff happened on Saturday night. I'll be talking about that later. I encourage you guys to check out my college rankings show this week. I'm not just going to discuss my playoff rankings. I'm also going to start looking forward to, the big games that are going to determine, the playoff matchups, the rest of the season, or how I see it. And then we'll talk about some of the, the upsets. Of course, we can't skip over Alabama. I mean, that's a big deal. Things like that. Kind of talk about, where Cincy falls into all this and all that. So check out Jeff Needs Sports College Football Rankings. Do a live show, and I'll be putting them out here very, very soon. So, but first of all, let's talk about our Buckeyes. Overview of the game. It was another story of basically two quarters. The second half of the game, I'm not saying it didn't matter, but it wasn't. It was more about learning, training, the process. The first half of the game, the Buckeyes looked really good. Stroud was almost perfect again. I mean, they come out essentially, and Maryland was like, okay, we're going to cut you off at the knees. We're not going to give you these gaping holes and let Trayvon Henderson run for 300 yards. Day and Stroud immediately shifted gears and said, all right, we'll just dissect you. And they did. They tried to push the running game for a few plays, and we're like, okay, here we go. And turned Wilson, Olave, and Jigba, just turned the gang loose. And it was over from that moment. Actually, Maryland probably, honestly, a smarter game plan would have probably been to let the Buckeyes run. At least it would have slowed down the whooping that they took, which is funny. Buckeyes scored 66 points. Maryland scored 17. Buckeyes scored 66 points. Only had the ball 25 minutes. They get the ball. They average 8.4 yards a play again, which is about what they've done all year. Just mowed them down. 8.4 yards a play is incredible. It really is. So, great job by the offense overall. So we'll talk about my knee jerks. I mean, you guys, the overview, you guys know it. Buckeyes kicked Maryland's butt. It is what it is, 66-17. Great game. So knee jerks. My biggest knee jerk was this team is starting to play to their speed. They're starting to react quicker. They're starting to make better decisions. And you all know we're specifically talking about the defensive secondary, the backs. I don't know. You would call it the back five. You want to call it the back seven, however you want to determine. Reacting quicker, making better reads, playing, together, in coverage, not like separate guys out there. They still go man a lot. It's a little different now. Safeties they're just playing a little better. Linebackers are playing better in coverage. My knee-jerk was that this very young team, the young players, are starting to figure out how to use their skills, and that's very important. And we knew it was going to happen. We hope that the Buckeyes didn't have to take a loss in this learning process. They did against Oregon. Honestly, they're going to fight that the rest of the year. It's just the way it is, especially with Oregon. They don't look as strong as they did coming out of that game, is what it is. So that's my knee jerk, is that the young guys are starting to figure it out, starting to pick it up. And everything works better that way. Stroud is he's another young guy. What if it, was the injury that was holding him back a little bit with his accuracy, whether it was mental, whether it was just being young, whether it was the lights, it doesn't matter. He's the last two games, he's had over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns in each of them. He's much more accurate. He's not missing open guys. He's letting his receivers run under the ball. He's making great throws when he has to. So just knee jerk was the team is coming together. That's it. And another one we'll talk about it when we get to report card. I see a weakness, not a weakness, but I see a surprisingly average group on this team. That we'll talk about when I get to report card. So talk about the offense. Once again, it was amazing. Receivers could do whatever they wanted yesterday. Stroud was putting the ball where it needed to go. Every play was working. The play designs by day looked really good. They're doing a great job. It reminds me similar of what Alabama's done the last couple of years. They're finding ways to get their skill guys, which the Buckeyes have a lot of them. They can choose which skill guy they want to get open, much like Alabama, similar to Alabama last year. They're finding ways to get guys open. Whether there was a great play yesterday where Wilson's coming across and he uses the umpire as a screen, which is fine. I mean, that's a very typical thing, but it's just knowing that exact depth. It's the precision of the routes. It just looked great, and it makes it easy on Stroud. And then when Stroud's accurate, it's a deadly combination. So offense looked really good. Henderson looked good again. Once again, Maryland was like literally technique wise, they were going to go low. They were going to cut these big offensive. That's what you do against a big offensive line. It's the weakness in having a massive offensive line is that they're tall, and smaller athletic defensive lines can get them low. They can shoot, they can fill the gaps and everything. They clutter things up. I essentially said that what they were trying to do yesterday was just make a parking bumper for, Travion to trip over, and it worked. They were going to have to go outside the tackles. They did. They eventually found, 166 rushing yards, just kind of put it together. But they they tested Stroud and they lost. He passed the test, and that is what it is. So offense adjusted, looked good, looked precise, looked fast. And of course the quarterback, looked wonderful, which we all know it's modern football. That's honestly the most important thing you have to have right now. Talk about the defense a little bit. Defense, I addressed it in the overview. Knee jerks, they look better, they look faster, they look like they're starting to get it. Steel Chambers really jumped off of the page yesterday. Everybody knows the former running back that converted to linebacker. Good for him. He's starting to flow. He's aggressive. He's physical. Really impressive. Had 6 tackles yesterday. The overall defense looked better. And here's what I didn't mind. There was, especially in the first half, like we'll just say when the game kind of mattered, when it was closer, the Buckeyes gave up a couple long drives. Tungavaloa is a really good quarterback. He was able to get out of the pocket with his quickness, really easy. The interior of the Buckeyes defensive line looked, pretty good getting a push. Nothing on the edges. I'm going to address that here in a minute with report card. But they kept things in front of them. The secondary kept the things in front of them. And what I said was, I don't love giving up, a 75-yard drive and a touchdown. But what I do like is that the Buckeyes are make a team earn it, because you can learn from that. You can learn from your mistakes if you play 10 plays on defense, even if the team is getting yards, as opposed to like last year and earlier this year when you're giving up 70-yard, pass plays behind you. You didn't learn anything. Your team was out there for 3 plays. You gave up a touchdown, even though it's the same amount of yards. It's not the same. You can't bang up the other team. You can't get in a groove. You can't get your, you can't get your lip bloodied and then and respond when you're giving up huge chunk plays. So, and then you with our defensive line, most offensive lines we face, our defensive line is going to be a little more physical. It's just by recruiting and, just being, a solid team. You can't wear down the offensive line if your defense can't stay on the field, if they're giving up chunk plays. So it's a combination of all that. Then you really saw they wore Maryland down. Maryland, I mean, they had a decent game plan. The plays were there. They didn't have the athletes. They had the running back got hurt early. Their best wide receivers out. All this is true, but that's the team that was in front of the Buckeyes. They wore them down, and it started to show up. You started to get a little more pressure. I keep calling him too. Sorry. He had Tagovailoa had to really scramble all day to make something happen, and so overall the defense was much better. And I think they're starting to play as a unit and starting to figure it out. They're tackling more physical. They're really tackling, securing tackles, made some really big ones. Seven Banks had is getting a little better. He had honestly had quite a few missed tackles there early, maybe 2 or 3, but he also had some good plays, so everything's coming together. You know, we've got it needs to come together quickly. Big Ten is obviously really good this year. There's really not a lot of gimme games left, if any, honestly. So the Buckeyes are coming together, but they need to keep up the work. They need to stay in the film room, and they need to get at it, they can still be got. That's the thing about this team is they're going to be young all season. They're not going to become juniors and seniors overnight. This team's going to be young. They're going to make huge mistakes all year, and they're going to hope that. Oh, sorry, get a little black dust there. And they're going to hope that the offense continues to do what they do and can cover up defensive mistakes. Same with the defense can, help out a young offense that, a young quarterback's going to make mistakes. So that's the thing. Team's getting better. They're back on track, and we'll see how it goes. All right, so now it's time for the report card. I love this. Report card was fun today. It was pretty easy, guys. I'm not going to lie. I enjoyed this one. And we'll go through it real quick. Quarterback A. The other reason he didn't get an A plus is because I got to leave room for later in the season. He obviously played A plus level in the first half. Just very, very few mistakes. There was one time, early in the game, there was a lot of touchdowns. I believe it was the second touchdown drive. They got to 3rd and goal. They design a nice play for him. He makes a bad throw off the fingertips of I believe Olave. It could have been Wilson, which is crazy that it's off their fingertips because those guys don't drop anything. But it was one of those, like, once again, flashback to the first couple games of the season to where, like, kind of cringe, like, man, you can't let those go. They decide to go for it on 4th down. They get Wilson one-on-one on the right side of the field I think it was the 4-yard line, which obviously that's like nobody's guarding Garrett Wilson one-on-one in any kind of space. So whatever, that's Maryland's scheme. They went for it, whatever. CJ reads it. Wilson runs or makes a perfect move. I mean, this guy runs a fade route from the 4 and gets wide open. That is impressive. Go back and watch the play. It is very impressive. And Stroud recognizes it, and he doesn't, you've only got 14 yards there to work with. He doesn't put Wilson in a position to have to make a back corner of the end zone toe drag. He sees that the defensive back is smoked. Before he can even get his turnaround, Stroud actually throws, I won't say a laser, but he really, really puts some heat on it. But nice trajectory, perfect placement. So the defensive back didn't even have time to turn around and interfere, fight, or anything. And that was just one play where I'm like, that's talent. Like that's just being a quarterback for most of his life, probably knowing what to do. But what I liked, recognize the situation, took advantage of the situation. Those are huge plays that carries over down the road, man to man, with Wilson and making the read and the right throw, the right type of throw in that moment will carry down the road. That is something that you can take away from this game. Very, very happy about that. So Stroud, did great. Nothing more to say. Everybody saw it's unbelievable. He's on a roll right now. We'll see as defenses get tougher and the weather gets crappier and things like that. Wide receivers, I just gave them an A plus because they weren't covered yesterday. They could do whatever they want. They run routes as a group well together. They run the design of the route. So, like, it might be Olave is helping Njigba get open or vice versa. Once again, we talked about Wilson when they needed him. There's nobody around him, which because he just can't be covered, they cause so much fear in a defensive secondary. It's unbelievable. Make Stroud's job easier. They did a wonderful job yesterday. And as always, downfield blocking is great. That's a hallmark of a Brian Hartline coach team. And it carried over. So wide receivers, A plus, easy one. Running backs, a B. I apologize for that. I do not have a cough button. I apologize for that. So running back, a B. They looked all right. Henderson's still a game breaker. I mean, they got the ball. They got him the ball in the passing game. It wasn't really his thing. I've already beat it to death. Maryland was not going to give up the gashed interior runs. That's something you can take away. So they didn't have a lot to do. They still 166, yards on the ground, which is great, but whether they ran the ball or not wasn't a huge factor. So, yeah, it's not that they did anything wrong, but they just weren't asked to do a lot. There's going to be times in this season where the running backs are going to be the most important players on the field. Just wasn't yesterday. But still had a good game. Nice solid B. Nothing wrong. Couple touchdowns. It's nice. It's nice to see Teague, get in there. Crowley looked really good. So yeah, there's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of if you're the running backs. It's not a negative. It's just you were only asked to do so much. And by the way, Travion Henderson still stole 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, I don't want to act like he didn't do anything. You know, he had a really good game, and then the receiving yards, like he's having an excellent season. I think it looks like he had about 170 total yards and 3 touchdowns. Just that's it. That's it for a freshman. Unbelievable good. We can do a whole show on him later, but maybe not. I gave the offensive line a B plus. Not great run. We're picking nits here. Not great run blocking, but Stroud is just so comfortable back there. He has so much trust in that line, and they deserve it. They're doing a wonderful job of not, and they're not giving up the big hits either. Like, I'm not saying they don't give up any pressure ever, but they're also not letting Stroud get hitting the ribs and the helmet and blind sides and all that. They're just doing a fantastic job. I gave him a B plus strictly because the giant, Mack truck size holes for the running game weren't there. Nitpicking, but still a great game from the offensive line. Very impressive. They're as a unit, they're doing really well too, and they're wearing teams down, which is very important. So they got a B plus. Probably should have been higher, but I got to leave room. I got to leave room for later in the year when we're really going to lean on them. There we go. Defensive line. Let's talk about this. Defensive line is C plus. I'm not. I don't know how to explain this. These guys are fine. They're just that there's no edge. The edge pressure is just not there. They basically Maryland decided as soon as the game started, like, for instance, like Jean Baptiste did a really good job of getting pressure up the middle. I mean, they tackled well interior and all that, against the run, but Tagovailoa knew that. I mean, as early as the first quarter, like, just roll to your right, just keep rolling to your right. We're just not getting that edge. There's a lot of inside techniques. Now, I know a lot of this is called for. I understand that Larry Johnson right now is probably like, Jeff, you're an idiot. You have no idea what I was doing. I'm not saying that. I watch these games and I tell you what I see. They're not making huge problems for quarterbacks that you're going to need if you play Iowa, when you play Penn State, when you play Michigan State, and when you play Michigan, all teams that you're going to have to bother their pocket quarterbacks. And I just don't see it yet. I won't say no, they are. They're underachieving. They're not exactly what we thought. Big, strong guys. And I know we're, the defensive scheme's a little different. I realize all this. I'm strictly saying eyeball sense. They look like just a slightly above average defensive line right now. And yes, we are holding them to Ohio State standards. That's what the show, like, if you want me to hold them to Maryland standards, defensive line got an A. Great. We're not. So I just think there's some issues there. I don't think, me personally, I think Sawyer's really good. He's not jumping off the screen like we want him to. I know he's a kid. He didn't play last year. He's got a lot of catching up to do. I'm just saying what I see week to week as far as the parts to make that defensive line go. It's just not blowing me away yet. And it does concern me, as the season goes on. We'll see. I never would have guessed I would think the defensive line would be the weakest part of the defensive 11 right now, but I'm starting to get nervous. Linebackers played really good. We talked about it. Good for Steel Chambers, leading tackler, really caused a lot of havoc, played fast, played downhill. They're getting better in coverage. They're reacting quicker. They're just simply moving more instead of being so flat-footed, which tells me they're listening to the coaches. They're in the film room. They're learning. That's all we can ask. I actually gave them a B plus. I thought they cluttered up, their zones really well. I thought they tackled, made pretty sure tackles, were pretty physical, and I thought they had fun and played fast. So I give the linebackers a B plus. I thought it was I think it's probably their best game so far. I know it's easy to say because it's only game 5 and they've had a lot of deficiencies, but defensive backs, I gave a B. Essentially, they look pretty good. But I will say this, if Tagovailoa doesn't overthrow that receiver in the first quarter, that's a wide. I still hold that against the defensive backs just because the quarterback overthrew it. I saw you let that guy get, make a huge mistake and let him get a mile behind you. So I do hold that against this team. In my mind, that should have been an easy touchdown. Other than that, they held up pretty good. Burke gets better every game. Love the guy. Seven Banks is coming into his own. The safeties are playing better. So I gave the defensive backs a B. They didn't get shredded. They kept things in front of them. They made sure tackles. They made some big plays. So, overall pretty good. Coaching staff, which we call the head coach on the report card. Coaching staff, great job. We said it. Every unit that's getting better is because of their accepting their coaching, which means the coaches are doing something right. Every unit's getting a little bit better. I thought the game plan yesterday, the way to not to, instead of Day, beating his head against the wall and trying to force this run game and causing one of these way too close for no good reason games that we've seen in the past. He's like, all right, let's just pass it. Go ahead, kid. Turn CJ loose, had the faith in him. Great run designs, blew him out of the water. So great adjustment. It was another week to where Day is handling questions very well. He's handling any so-called controversies, all that stuff. He's he's doing a well-rounded, as a coach, and the coaching staff, a very well-paid coaching staff. I, it feels like the adjustment they made in the defensive coaching, it has helped. I mean, the defense is better. Most of it's the kids just playing more. It is what it is. So I gave an A to the coaching staff. They came in, they knew what they had to do, and they got it done in emphatic fashion. Good for them. It is what it is. You can't. We just saw yesterday. We saw some upsets yesterday. We saw some good teams play bad games. You can't just roll your team out there and hope they'll win. Like, you have to coach and you have to have a game plan. And the Buckeyes did that, and for 3 weeks in a row, they've left no doubt. As far as who the better team on the field was. So that's it. Great week. Once again, 66-17 win over Maryland. It was fun. It was fun to watch. This week I got to watch it with some, other people. We're having a birthday party for my nephew Baker. Shout out to Baker. And it was a really good time. Enjoyed it. This is what the season's about. We know we're going to have more stressful, honestly, closer games coming up in the future. These ones are fun when the team plays good. They had, and they're enjoying it. Why not? It was a beautiful day in Columbus. Hope everybody had a good time. And that's what the college football season is about as fans. Sometimes we just get to enjoy it. So that's it, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Remember, you download this anywhere you listen to your podcast. Apple. I prefer Spotify. I'll just say it out loud. I think they're a more podcast friendly platform right now. Is what it is. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sharing all these things. I'd love to hear your comments. Any thoughts, whatever. Hit me up on Twitter at jhunt006. And that's it for this week. We'll hopefully see you next Sunday. Again, with another victory lap. So that's it, everybody. Have a great week, and be kind.